What are we drinking here?
Today we have Shot in the Arm Barrel-Aged Imperial Stout by McFate Brewing Company.
Oh, that's an oldie. That's probably 2 years old.
I don't know. There's a sticker that says 2/11.
Yeah, well, that's not. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that.
I don't know.
But the label's on upside down, which I think was significant in that it was the barrel-aged version. Because I think the Shot in the Arm isn't necessarily barrel-aged. Well, no, it's upside down for a reason. We'd have to probably distinguish why it's upside down. I don't know, to call Adam or something. Arizona is a wildly beautiful place, brimming with over 100 brewing companies. I'm Rob Fulmer, the Executive Director of the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild. I'm joined by Deputy Director Andrew Bauman. Together we cover the state, bringing you the best of what's happening at our breweries and beyond. Welcome to Arizona Beer Frontier. Man, I tell you what, the storm yesterday? You didn't get any rain? It poured in Tempe, apparently, because I got a video sent to me from Brenda, who's working at home. And I was at Bonehouse, sorry. Wow, faux pas. And it was like sunny and cloudy and like classic, billowing clouds.
Yeah.
And, the next thing I know, it's like, oh yeah, it's pouring out there. Like, what? And I look outside and it's like raining sideways and yeah. And, and then by the time I, finished, my beers there and ordered some to-go food, there was a Hatch Chili truck. It was fine. And then I'm driving home and like, it's like, if you're on any of the major highways, most of the major highways, especially on the loops, around, not necessarily on parts of the 17 or the 10 as you get closer to downtown, you can see a long way. I mean, because our trees are like nominally 12 feet.
And also this big around.
Yeah. And you could just see forever. And like the rain knocked out some stuff, but like there's always particulate matter in the air. And like we just had some spectacular skies like the last couple days.
Yeah, we got a little bit of clouds starting to look like they wanted to do something, but then no, nothing.
Yeah.
They look. I mean, it was barely like, oh, something might happen. No, okay. They all just disappeared.
What are we drinking here?
Today we have Shot in the Arm Barrel-Aged Imperial Stout by McFate Brewing Company.
Oh, that's an oldie. That's probably 2 years old.
I don't know. There's a sticker that says 2/11.
Yeah, well, that's not. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that.
I don't know.
But the label's on upside down, which I think was significant in that it was the barrel-aged version. Because I think the Shot in the Arm isn't necessarily barrel-aged. Well, no, it's upside down for a reason. We'd have to probably distinguish why it's upside down. I don't know, to call Adam or something. I'll put it in the notes if I get that piece of information. But
super premium Imperial Stout barrel-aged in whiskey barrels.
Well,
and set to rest in a fridge in the guild office for a few years.
Yeah.
Definitely needs warming up.
Yes, it does.
That's
but I'm gonna press it to my lips briefly anyway.
Okay, good. That's pleasant.
Yeah, and that's gonna get better. Like that chocolatey stuff's gonna come out a little more. It's a little, it's definitely syrupy.
Yeah, it's sweet.
But that cocoa is gonna come out a little bit more as it's finishing like that. So interesting.
Yeah. That was a good selection.
I find myself drinking bigger beers earlier in the day.
Oh, like a 14% at 11 in the morning?
Is that what this is?
Yes.
Yeah, I do. Because if I'm my stomach is full from food, and this putting something like this on top just doesn't work. And I don't know if it's true, but I feel like the darker roasted malts are harder to digest as you get older, or I don't know. Like,
Interesting.
it seems to me like they just hang with you longer.
I've been living a really nice IPA life in my house. So,
Yeah.
It's been great.
Um.
So, hey, do you want to start out with what went on this weekend in the world of beer?
Sure. On Saturday? No, Friday. Yeah. Late Friday, I drove up to Flagstaff so that I could be in my Lederhosen for the first time in honestly 2 years, because last year, of note, I did not go to any Oktoberfest. I think we were just really busy with things, and I don't recall exactly what or why we were behind the 8 ball, but like it was.
We're busy because we have Arizona Craft Beer Awards, we have Wickenburg Oktoberfest, we have AZB3, and now we added on Belgian Beer Fest and the other one, the AZ Local Fall Fest.
Right.
So we're busy.
Yeah. Well, those things are occurring.
And being planned.
So this is an early Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
So this was in Flagstaff with Lumberyard, and they've been doing it for, I think, a decade. I don't know. Maybe that poster says that we have floating around the office, but they've used that to contribute to charitable functions for quite a while. It goes to the High Country Humane Society.
I'm grab that poster.
All right, and I don't have exact figures, but I mean, 10 or 20,000, depending on the year, depending on the participation, go towards the High Country Humane Society. And so, if you add that up over a decade or 8 years, or it's a significant amount of money. And let's not forget that the Hanseth family, owners of Lumberyard, also own Beaver Street, and there's a tradition there. And I'm gonna dive into that a little bit in the next couple of days. I'm really super interested because, sometimes it's a thing that breweries do in a given year, and sometimes it's a longevity of things, right? And they are the last people to honk their own horn up there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
I'm gonna ask some questions.
Pretty shy about their charitable giving.
Yeah, and they lost the father of the family around COVID, and they kept it pretty private. So, but we'll find out more about that. But it's a good one. I'm noticing that fewer people are wearing the German attire, the Lederhosen. It seems to me that sort of COVID was like the last time I remember something really significant. Now, I haven't been to one last year, so maybe I'm just, and I've only been to one this year, but keep an eye out for that. I don't know did everyone buy theirs 10 years ago and it was too costumey and
now they're big.
I don't know. Yeah.
They've been drinking beer for 10 years.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think I crafted an Oktoberfest outfit one time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll bust that out for Wickenburg.
I have a T-shirt that
Yeah.
implies that you're wearing it, and then I have the sweatpants, which are great.
Oh,
They have the little flapper in the front. That's
yeah. Sweet.
Yeah, and I bought the swimsuit, but it is too small for me.
Mm.
So maybe you can have that.
Okay.
I don't know how you feel about a used swimsuit.
Did it go into the laundry ever? I guess it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
I was okay. So the Today Show is on at my house all the time, and they were talking about Lululemon has an exchange program where you can send in your old, still good clothes and get credit towards getting new Lululemon stuff. They were like, used sports bras? I don't know if that's something. So, similar to your swimsuit comment.
Yeah, well, there's always the places that you go and you can try on clothes, but not swimsuits.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that'd be an important thing for a lot of women. Hey, happy Hispanic Heritage Month.
Oh, yeah, that kicks off.
That kicked off well, over the weekend, officially the 15th.
Mhm.
It goes from mid-September to mid-October. But it was celebrated early. The governor hosted some events at the Capitol for the first time ever to celebrate the actual Mexican Independence Day. So you might have seen some people driving around with the flags behind their truck that were Mexican flags. It wasn't, it was
Not an invasion.
it was just that's what it
Okay.
was. Yeah.
All right.
I think we invaded them, sir. I think this is not.
That's a very long
Yes.
discussion for sure. So you went up to Flagstaff and you went to
Oh yeah. So
Oktoberfest.
yeah. So, but on Friday I went to. I got there late because it was a late call to do it, and I had a few beers. I ended up at the Mountainside Tap Room. On 66
Mountaintop Mashers.
Mountaintop. No, yeah, Mountaintop
Tap Room.
Wow, sorry. And they had music there. It was great. But I noticed something on 66. There's a lot of businesses out there, right?
Mhm.
Bars,
Mhm.
right? Without naming, actually, it was a couple of them. Without naming them, it seems like a lot of people go out and do a smoke break out there, and it seems to be very marijuana laden.
Ah.
So I don't care. I only mention this to underscore the fact that I'm not wrong when I say
People are using it.
our licensed establishments are seeing customers with THC in the system, and like it can be pretty brazen. So, that's why we need some.
Couple things.
We can't have this closed system that is set up by the dispensaries because it's clearly not closed. It is like when ASU kicked all the frats off campus. Like they lived somewhere, they lived in people's neighborhoods, and all the
Created
problems
havoc,
that ASU wanted to avoid, they just dispersed them in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
So but you had something to add on to that. I thought I introduced.
Oh no, I mean, yeah, there's that's just another good reason that we need to have some kind of controls in place and maybe bring it inside. I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, just another argument for hemp, but we've beaten that horse for a long time.
Yeah.
So we have a bill that we're supposed to look over, and that seems like something that's not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. We're gonna have to step through it. We do have a meeting with some of our industry colleagues to sort of discuss things. We have some things that we probably didn't talk about in here, and we won't until we sort of flesh them out. But long story short, and this probably be along the lines of any type of presentation we do tomorrow, is like our businesses are hurting. If we're going to compete with these new products that are supposedly innovative, that have basically taken the blueprint of the flavor revolution that we were a part of, and they are replacing it with large amounts of grain alcohol being mixed at co-packs
Oh,
and being, marketed to, and they want a specific tax break. If that's the future of Arizona beverages or beverages across the country, then we need to be better prepared to maybe make some of those beverages, sell some of those beverages, allow our smallest breweries to survive, to pick a innovative model, which could be a better model, for the rest of the country. We could lean into our hospitality side of the state.
mm-hmm.
We should be known as a place where people would go to experience those things because they're already coming here for other reasons. So that's kind of what the finer points of what I'm talking about. But that's how we're going to lay this out. Is these things have to happen, and it's more as much an overture to the bars and restaurants that could easily participate in these programs if they saw the value of what we're doing. It would sort of get rid of the, hey, well, we paid this amount for a license, therefore we own this lock, stock, and barrel. I'm like, well, you could allow some flexibility, and you might actually be incentivized to participate given the new rules, and it would make your business better. And like restaurants And some bars are clearly better at some of the hospitality, service, look and feel, comfort factor of their places, and having that mix would be good for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
But you got excited. You rubbed your hands, and I don't know what that means.
Well, the Brewbound yesterday was talking about the innovation that's coming out of legacy breweries right now. And they were talking about 3 different breweries, and their biggest innovation is that they're now doing 8% IPAs in 19.2s for convenience. And is it innovation, or is it just copying the Voodoo Ranger high ABV triple IPAs?
Yeah.
And is that really the direction that we need to go to compete? Because 19.2s of 8%, that is a lot of alcohol.
Yeah. All the numbers were suggesting that just because it looks like a trend, it doesn't mean it's a trend. You are literally going up against one competitor, but far be it for me to understand where small breweries can sort of nip at the heels of that. So I don't know. I mean, it seems counterintuitive to me, but if you can get that shelf space, then and you're poised to meet that demand, especially now when capacity shouldn't be an issue as much,
Right.
then I say maybe my thinking has to change.
No one's going to be jumping into the convenience market right now.
Yeah,
I mean, we could see Santan or Huss put out something in that area,
well,
but it's not.
Let me ask you this, and also the people you know. Do you know anyone who's ever gone to the convenience store to buy any of those products?
I would go with not really. No.
Yeah, I mean even on a road trip, right? Presumably to have that for later when you get to your destination, not to be drinking in the car.
Certainly. That's what no one would do that.
But in some cases, some of those beverages are clearly designed for. If you're hoofing it on foot, but that's a customer base, right? People who walking to a convenience store to have a single serve.
Yeah.
This is in another state. I remember driving across Illinois the long way and just seeing a light on the highway overpass and gas station, and got to the gas station and look, and it's dark. As far as you can see, you could count maybe 4 or 5 farmhouses within, I don't know what the visibility was, but it's got to be miles, right? Because it was the highest point in a flat state. And I'm like, there is a ice chest full of, I think they were wine coolers, or they were designed for I'm going to have one and I'm going to get a little bit messed up. like that ice chest full of many of those products was not there at the checkout for the 5 or 6 4 farms I saw.
Right.
Got to keep these cold because the Joneses are coming by, and
Gonna fill up.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm sorry, that was a tangent. Holy shit. But what else was in that Brewbound? Just that they were considering that innovation.
Yeah, it was 3 different. I only get the free version, so it's a few different little.
Oh, it was in the print
clips.
Or was it in the pod? It was in the clip. It was in
the newsletter.
Okay, I can get you the rest of that. I was listening to a couple of John Hall pods.
Mm-hmm.
One was Drink Beer, Think Beer,
and Steal This Beer.
Yeah, and on the first one, he was. I think his name is Adam Tierney Jones, British writer. He has a book called A Pub for All Seasons, and he got me thinking about sort of changing your frame of reference before you start to drink, because he was looking for the perfect pub over the course of a year, and he talked about, how the pub has a different light during the autumn versus the summer, and how most of the people gravitate outside, and he was talking about a particular place, and in the winter, they try to all get nearer to the fire, and they talk much more quietly in the winter. And he talked about when they first open, there's a lot of idle time and it's quiet time. People are reading books, and like it's very romantic version. And it's the reason why you go to the UK or to Belgium or to go some of the great beer bars and pubs while they still exist as they are. But he was talking about the seasonality of beer, and we sort of don't have as much of that. If you are here in Metro Phoenix, you get very hot summers, and you get very brief periods where it's like summer everywhere else, and then we go right into fall, and we never really have a winter here per se.
We just finished the 113th straight day
Of 100-degree
of
weather.
100-degree plus.
Yeah.
May 26th was the last day that the high was below 100.
Right. So it's appropriate we're drinking this beer because
It's cold.
it's also a warm day though.
Yeah.
But this office is cooler.
It's only going
And
to be 99.
So, based on what I heard him talk about, like just put your mind in that place before you drink a different style
Mm-hmm.
and be more conscious of in your head the style's origin. And I've tried this, and like it does sort of put you in a different place if you are conscious about that, the origin of the style, where it would be popular, when it would be popular drink, because we do air conditioning very well, so it's going to be the same temperature all the time in every brewery you go to in Arizona.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But if you sort of mentally picture like what would be a time to drink this,
I'm in a hot tub in McCall, Idaho.
yeah,
I'm there right now.
right,
Our first Thanksgiving when we moved away from Lubbock up to Boise, my buddy said, come up to my parents' place in McCall for Thanksgiving.
yeah,
And so up we went, and we just had a lovely time. Just like being home again.
right. No, that's good. Cheers to that.
And drinking beer in a hot tub.
Yeah.
Snow everywhere. Deer drinking out of the stream right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So mine is winter as well, but it's more of a blustery autumn day. And I'm thinking of the time that Tom and Jill, my in-laws, had a place in Colcord, which is outside of Christopher Creek, which is outside of Payson. They had a 3-story cabin, believe it or not, because it was built into a hillside, and they had I'll take that later. They had a deck, really small deck, and it was brown wood. And I just remembered, I think it was Lou Bryson had a photo contest, winter beer photo contest. It was just like take a beer, and so I did submit. I put my, I'm sure it was a stout, on the rail, and there was just these really crystallized snowflakes hitting the glass and coming down on the contrasting on the brown of the rail, and took the picture, and it didn't win anything, but he did point out like maybe we should have a category of winter beers where you don't think winter exists, because it was from Arizona. But like, we know that like, winter can exist here, but like that's immediately what I thought of is that. And so, it's cold outside, but you're still wearing your inside clothes because you're going to tough it out for 5 or 10 minutes, or sometimes even 15 or 20.
Yeah.
If there's no breeze, it can be, and it's dry, it can be pretty pleasant. And that's, what I'm thinking of. And maybe you're switching hands because it is cold to hold it, and you didn't bring your drinking glove, So.
Ay. Not prepared. No drinking gloves.
Anyway, that's I listened to that podcast, driving up there, and I thought about it consciously. The last 3 or 4 beers I had that were not necessarily a style you'd have in 100-degree weather.
The Trappist.
Yeah, I had the Trappist over at
Catalyst.
Yeah. Belgian strong, and I'm like, I just got there. I'm like, I'm going to start out with this. I'm going to start out with 5 ounces, and then I'm not going to come back to it because, I just can't do more than a little bit. And if I drank it later in the day, I think it would complicate things for me. So
Oh boy.
yeah, no. So I did that. Anyway, Flagstaff. Sorry. The Oktoberfest was fun. Mother Ode Dark Sky. Obviously Lumberyard. Wanderlust was there. They had a mild.
Oh, cool. Who did Wanderlust?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yes. That. Oso. Grand Canyon. It was funny because I sat at a table and I was talking to folks and they were talking about where to get firewood and stuff. And we have a wood burning thing. And I was like, well, that's my brother-in-law. I have no idea where he gets his wood. But everyone had an opinion on where to get wood for the winter.
That's a nice Flagstaff talk.
I know.
there.
And so we were talking and like,
Beautiful.
they were like, and this is for our breweries and this is for our people who know everything about beer or know a lot about beer and they just assume that everyone else does. People are like, I don't know that. Is Oso here in Flagstaff? Do they have a brewery here in Flagstaff? And I had to tell them, no, they were close to having a location, but no. But don't overestimate how well known your brewery is or what the opportunity to sell is.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't, because like that's a small town. And that there was some doubt that somehow they had missed that there was a new brewery in town.
Right.
And so we have to catch up with those guys about the 988 beers too sometime soon. I know they're launching them
That
there.
is happening right now all over the state. Yep.
But I also know that anytime is a good time for 988, to talk about it. So we'll have to get with them as soon as the people we know over there are back from their leave of absences and vacations and things.
Right.
But yeah, it was a good time. I don't know if you saw this. I'm looking at my photos. They remodeled the Department of Liquor. Were you there?
Wait, when is that open house?
It's
Next week?
October.
Oh, okay.
It's October. Yeah.
Yes, I heard that there was a remodel. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I had to go pick up my license, or I had to drop off a license, and then I had to email them my stuff again. They lost all of our stuff during the move. My fingerprints, I had to do that last time. This time it was my license. Anyway, just kind of came back the next day. I thought about going to Lake Pleasant.
You came back on Sunday, right?
Yeah, I thought about going to Lake Pleasant because they had something going on, and I couldn't tell. They had some sort of brats limited on Sunday, and I'm like, oh, perfect. And they had a photo of canned Rauch beer, and I'm like, this is awesome. They're on the way back. They route you off of I-17 because they had a closure, and by the time I went through my thing, and it was a longer wait than I wanted to. I got us off the highway and went around, and if you went straight, there was another cluster. So I was on city streets for 20 minutes or so. I would have had to go back, and I was like, I don't think I'm up for maybe hitting that again a second time.
Right.
I had some commitments to my parents back in the valley to take care of some stuff, so didn't happen. So that catches me up, but you went the other direction.
Yeah.
As sometimes happens. Like sometimes we're together for 72 hours nonstop, and then sometimes,
Yeah. I headed down to Tucson.
Yeah.
There is the reason we went was Button Brewing's 7-year anniversary. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And we went as soon as we got in town. We went to 1912 because Bonnie wanted some tamales. So
Right.
we went there. Each of us had 2 5-ounce pours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Had really nice beers. Had the tamales. I wanted Bonnie to see Slow Body because it's so pretty.
Yeah.
So we headed over there and then up to Button.
You remarked about the beers at Slow Body. Yeah. You like them?
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
They have their pale ales. They have an IPA. They've got shrubs.
So
a soda water with fruit syrup. And you can have it booze or no booze.
where have I heard about this before?
Shrubs were a thing for like a minute.
Yeah.
They're jumping all the way in.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's cool. And it's just so beautiful. I mean, the garden, the whole thing, it's just gorgeous. I know we're busy.
Right. So just another location. It's close to on the other side of Barrio.
Yeah.
Right. So
Right behind.
which is there's also Iron John's in that neighborhood.
I mean, it's also right by Moto Sonora.
Yeah, I'm just trying to paint a picture.
Yeah.
I haven't been there since the first time I went, right before they opened. So you got that one on me.
Yeah, my third stop. It's so pretty. So we did that. And then when we got to Button for their anniversary party, it was really cool. They were having Water Olympics. This was the finals. So it's been a 4-month series of water balloon tosses of various sorts. And everyone was just having a super blast fun time. It was really, really cool. And another reason for people to come to the brewery in summer when it's hot and, do more than just sit inside a bar and drink and maybe watch some sports or something. Actually go outside and have a great time and stay cool. I thought it was a great idea, and the people that were there were having a blast.
Huh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything like that anywhere else?
I've seen it. No.
Huh.
They do have a large patio area
Right.
that's got rocks. It also has like a concrete pad. So
Yeah, the last time I was down there was right after they had some monsoon activity that sort of took that patio covering out. Did they cobble something together, or did they get something new? Or
they put a 10 by 20 pop-up tent, which covers like a third of that space because that's probably 20 by 60.
Yeah. Okay.
It's maybe 20 by 40. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't cover the whole thing, but it does put some shade. There were people sitting under that shade the whole time.
Yeah. Beers are good. I take it. They've always been pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, beers are good.
Anything new for the...
And they had like
anniversary?
10 releases.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, those will still be available, so
Yes.
Get
It'll
on
be
down.
available for the next couple weeks, probably.
get on down there.
Barrel aged stuff, blends, all kinds of fun stuff. A couple new sours. Birthday cake sour, right? We talked about that.
Oh, that was them.
That was them. Yep.
Yeah. So was it kind of?
I did not have it.
Oh, all right. We'll leave that up. I speculated it was kind of a vanilla white cake with a tart lemon
Makes sense. Yeah.
finish.
I love it.
I would eat that cake. I would probably drink that beer. I would try that beer. Would it happen together? No.
Right.
Hardly a chance in hell that those would ever come together, right?
Can I have the cake and the beer together at the same time?
Yeah.
Be a lot.
That's like when I had the Trappist, I'm like, there is a lot of vanilla coming off this. Like, I just need a dish of ice cream with this right now to really go over the top on it. I could use a dish of ice cream right now with this.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
It's starting to really come around.
It is. Let's see. We stayed there for 2 beers of time, so a couple hours.
Yeah.
And then it was zip home, and I was really tired. I took like an hour and a half nap.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like after that Oktoberfest. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to go home, get out of the Lederhosen, maybe walk back down. I'm like, I laid down, and I'm like, I woke up like the lights are on. I'm like, I had no concept of what my plan was. I was like, I went to bed without turning the lights off. Yeah. So it was good that I rode my bike down there and back. And then it was good that I did not leave the house again. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes you can have a little downtime, Rob.
Yeah. Oh, I did not get out of bed very quickly on Sunday. I just decided, you know what?
I had a baseball game to go to. I went to a baseball game Friday. I want to do a baseball game Sunday.
Yeah. So was that the Sunday game, the barn burner?
That was Saturday.
Oh,
I was not there for that.
Yeah, I know that you went to.
I mean, it was
like Joseph texted me. You tell me you were at this game. Like, no, I'm not.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
The Sunday game was rough. The Brewers were leading most of the game and then just fell apart. And the Diamondbacks came back and won with a grand slam walk-off in the 9th.
Right.
That they only got 1 point for because then they won and then the game was over. But there were still 3 more guys that went over the plate. Yeah, so it was 11-10.
So the Diamondbacks are up 10, and aren't the Brewers behind 2 or 3 now from the wild card for?
No, the Brewers' magic number is 2.
Okay,
and that can be accomplished today if the Cubs lose and the Brewers win.
Oh, okay. So I thought that somehow the Mets were like competing with the Diamondbacks. No.
We
don't know.
I don't know exactly.
So the magic number's 2 with how many games left?
12.
Okay. All right. So
Brewers are in.
Yeah.
Diamondbacks are up against the Padres.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. Mets might be in there. I don't know. All I know is the Brewers need to win more so that we cannot get stuck in that wild card round and get kicked out.
I think
again.
they have the most wins in the National League, don't they?
That might be.
Okay.
What? The Brewers?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I thought they had 90 wins right now.
I could pull it up, but that seems like I don't.
It doesn't matter. Nobody.
I'm looking anyways. No one cares except me.
You know, my rule was I don't talk about baseball till September.
The Brewers have 87 wins. The Phillies have 90.
Okay. All right.
And the Dodgers have 89.
Okay. So the Dodgers were supposed to be unstoppable.
Right.
That doesn't seem like they are unstoppable.
The Diamondbacks are 6 games back. The Padres are 3.5 games back from the Dodgers. The Brewers are 10 games up over the Cubs and 12 over the Cardinals. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The Brewers are going to win the NLC. The Dodgers are going to win the NL West. It just, I guess, matters how much they win it by, who gets the bye in the first round.
Right.
And the Mets are 547. Like, the Diamondbacks are higher than that. 553.
Hey, you know what really works well with this? Beer.
And coffee.
A little bit of coffee.
Hey, Rob, why don't we take a little break?
Okay.
All right. We'll be right back. Diamondbacks are going to be in Milwaukee starting Thursday. So
Am I talking to Andrew Bauman?
My dad and I
Hi,
really
Andrew
wanted
Bauman.
to fly to Milwaukee.
Andrew Bauman.
Hey, Rob.
Okay, now let's start.
Diamondbacks are in Milwaukee this weekend. So
really?
my dad wanted to put together a quick trip. But then the next day I was like, yeah, that's not real. He's like, no, that's not real.
The next day.
Yeah, Monday when we talked.
Oh, you had an exuberant moment.
Yes, we had an exuberant moment. We were very excited. And I was like,
Right.
that's not real. He's
Right.
like,
And you're like, we're not in college. This
I
isn't
don't-
some crazy college plan. We're not driving there. We're not getting in the car tonight.
It's not even the playoffs. Like, what?
Yeah, but I thought that was the whole pennant race kind of. But there's no more. That doesn't matter anymore. Wild card, right? Wild card doesn't obviates the pennant race.
A bit, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about beer, and then we're talking about baseball.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about me taking a nap after Oktoberfest and being down for the count.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just you never know what you're going to do when you get up there. Sometimes that altitude hits you hard. And if you're in the sun, because, again, it's 70-some degrees, right? But the sun is just baking down on you.
Uh-huh.
And you're wearing, like, goat skin around your area. And, no, it's fine. So I planned on coming back and, like, maybe hitting a few breweries on Sunday, but I didn't because I sort of made up for it because I remember the last show you said, hey, there's call service at Bonehouse.
Right.
So I did that, and I that's what we opened the show with. But I hadn't been there in a while. Like if you're into the sort of this, I don't know, supernatural theme, haunted theme,
Pirates.
it's more mining
Oh, okay.
ghosts and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
It seems to me.
Makes sense.
They have a lot of look and feel. Like if it's the Irish theme pub of breweries that are cemetery themed
Yeah.
or whatever. It's well done.
You know, it's definitely a thing. And there's plenty of breweries out there that are like, hello, we are a brewery.
Right.
So
Right.
it's kind of, I don't know if it's my jam what they're doing, but they're definitely into it. And whatever they're doing it really well. Like,
It's
you're not going to mistake that brewery or their beers on the shelves for something it's not.
Yeah, so they have those theme cans. Like, so what if you have never been there? You look at the can, like you know what you're getting. It's you walk. It's in a strip mall. It has a spectacular view. Like if you go out into the parking lot, I mean, there's a grocery store there, and like has a better view of the valley. You're in Fountain Hills, looking down on the rest of the valley.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, where they are, they don't really get that view. But unless when you're driving in or you get out of that parking lot, you can see pretty well. And hopefully they'll get large enough they can take advantage of that. But you walk into that place and it's like you're in a bar in Cave Creek that's been there for 60, 80, 100 years. Like it transforms quite a bit.
Definitely.
I just had the Kolsch. People were drinking other things. I should have, I wanted to be like, no, I'm going to do the Kolsch service. I'm going to pretend I'm in Germany, except I'm in a very weird
mining graveyard brewery in Fountain Hills.
Yeah. No. So I just went with the Kolsch's and
Cool.
they stamp the coaster and
It's great.
and all that. And they lay out the rules. So you don't have to feel ridiculous. Like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Like what happens if, which, that can happen to you if you are in Cologne and like, you don't know how that works. And you're like,
Your beer's empty and you're just sitting there talking to your friend. All of a sudden there's a new beer and you're like, what happened?
You're taking your coaster and you're peeling it apart because it's like, you just ripped up your receipt, dude. But yeah, it was super cool. And I'm trying to look back and see which breweries I haven't been to in a while, but with our tight schedule, it's gonna be tough. And I know that you and I need to carve out and see if we can make it down to Bisbee in a overnight sometime.
Yeah.
So I know it's going to be rougher and rougher as we get into October, but that would be cool. But I don't know. Like, I hadn't been to Catalyst in a while, even though that's very close to my house. And I confessed to the folks there. I'm like, yeah, I've been to the Chinese restaurant a couple times but I just get pickup,
Yeah.
And some Chinese food you can let sit, but I get the fried fish and like, I don't even like that I don't even like to close the lid on the styrofoam container because like it just
Steams
steams
to
it
death.
up. Yeah. So I don't know. So if we're talking about beers and putting yourself in a mindset, then I think everybody who's listening should kind of think about the breweries that they haven't gone to in a while. Give them another shot. Give them another. See if the people you know are there. Check on the beers. Maybe that should be the idea. But I also thought about this because I talked to a couple of brewers and we talked about Pliny and I talked to William Walterson at Catalyst and he came from Central Coast and Southern California and we talked a little bit about Pliny and I talked about like, hey, like we brought a few back, but like honestly the best time was drinking them there and like
Sure.
So get your mind around what you're drinking before you start sipping it and sort of think about it a little bit and put yourself there, put yourself in a time and place. This is kind of what John Hall does.
So if you have an IPA, you should just imagine you're in the redwoods of California and just
if that's
smelling
your jam,
the smells,
or if you're
listening to the birds,
if
feeling a
you're
cool breeze.
in Brattleboro, Vermont, having a more English style East Coast IPA.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, you can play that game, right?
I've never been there.
I have.
I can go there.
Yeah. Right.
Journey of the mind.
Right. But my other idea is like the Pliny's were good, and we talked about it. I don't want to exhaust that, but like it just was better having them there. And so like put your mind in the beer and the style, time, place, all that stuff, and then drink in 360 degrees. And even though I was drinking the Kolsch in Bonehouse, I was drinking in 360 degrees. I was taking it all in. I was, and so I talked to a few folks. I'm like, you guys should count how many actual skulls, 3-dimensional, not printed, not, and you should come up with a number and just have a trivia question about that. Because they had, because the guess off the cut, the agreed amount was about 40, but I'm like, you got to count. You have your staff count. I bet you get a disagreement.
Everyone gets different numbers and just average it.
Yeah. I said, that would be a great trivia question for this place. And they're like, oh, you want to do like a scavenger hunt type of thing? I'm like, we need that information. And then I said, well, here's one. I'm reaching under the bar. I'm like, do you have bag and purse hooks? I'm like, yes, they do. Like, this is our thing.
Yes,
right? We should
always.
start. Let's write that down.
Yes, that needs to go in our member information list.
That's
has
just
bag hooks.
That's just as important of pet friendly patio bag hooks.
Paying attention. That's right.
Yeah.
Hospitality.
Right. Yeah.
Well, what do we have coming up next? So we have our ACBA awards.
Yep.
We've got Wickenburg Oktoberfest on September 28th.
Yep.
Breweries are all lined up for that. We're doing our last minute things. We're doing I got to get some social media posts put up. We did paid ads on Eventbrite.
Right.
I have to check that out, see where we're at.
We're focusing on understanding which breweries are going to sell to go at the festival.
I have 2 right now.
Yeah.
It was 3.
Yep.
Now it's 2.
Okay.
We'll see.
Okay. You don't want to talk about it yet?
Well, I mean, the brewery at Torito Farm and Walter Station will both be selling beer.
There you go. And those are beers that would be difficult to, if not impossible, to obtain
in town.
Mm-hmm. So, and
the brewery at Torito Farm, that's really difficult to get your hands on in Phoenix.
Right.
So people that are coming up from Phoenix have this great beer because they make incredible beer.
Right.
I'm like, wow, I can take some of that home. Cool.
Right. And when I talked to William, he was talking about the judging experience and how like it got him to network with people, and he kind of was like, hey, I wish more people would take advantage of it, meaning his peers. And I wish.
So you're talking about Williams Walterson
Yeah.
at Catalyst. I just said Walter Station. So when you said Walter,
no, but you said Catalyst. You said Catalyst was going to sell to go. Oh,
no,
you said
Walter Station. Catalyst
okay.
is not going to be there. Yeah.
Okay, that's all right.
But what he said was it was a great experience being part of the judging and got to do a lot of networking and meet some people.
It's
he
like
otherwise
they
would
made
not.
beers with Saddle Mountain because based on their discussions and networking and hanging out last year. So yeah, sorry, it was completely random. Yeah, want another random thing?
Yeah, just throw it out there.
Listen to did you have a chance to listen to
Steal This Beer? No, not yet.
Oh, so there is a company called Bavana who saw this opportunity, which the opportunity still exists, to bring together multiple breweries with that complement each other in a market. And essentially they take your you actually contract for them. They use all your branding, but they buy the quantities and they work with the distributors. And ideally, you sell to them, and then once you sell to them, you're off the hook. The problem is they went through a bankruptcy because they were underfunded, and it's if you're in the industry or you want to understand why isn't this brewery in my state? Well, these opportunities are difficult, and you can hear about the problems when somebody tries to solve that problem and they don't have all the pieces together. So
resources,
So there was a bankruptcy, or there was a breach of contract, and it forced bankruptcy of at least one brewery, Pontoon, that talked about it. But they talked about how You know, they were like promised, they delivered their first order and were never paid for it.
Right.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars. This
Right.
was a tap room, multi-state operation. They had to go through bankruptcy, went through the pain of reorganization, and you know, and like literally, the owner said this is the best thing that ever happened in terms of the way that bankruptcy works. It allowed them to reorganize. They were
It's
able to bring
Pontoon or Bavana?
Pontoon.
Okay.
Bavana seems to be the bad guy in all this, and they aren't saying very much. But listen to the show, make your own decision about it. But it was acknowledged by a lot of folks that this problem could be solved. You just have to listen to it, and maybe when
Cool.
you do, we can talk about
Yeah,
it again.
great.
I'll set that up. But I'm really enjoying this coffee and stout combination right now.
The guys at Kodo, that's a branding marketing firm.
Right.
They released, okay, I'm on their newsletter, and one came out. It comes to my personal email.
Sure.
And so when I wake up early in the morning and I'm doing my personal email stuff, it jumps in there, and I actually can give it a little more time than I would if I was in my regular work email,
Right,
because I just want
right.
to clear that out. So I was reading, and they were talking about rebranding, and not rebranding your whole brewery, but like doing some refreshes on packaging and all kinds of stuff. And
Right.
it was very interesting. They did some side by sides of breweries that have, like, Sam Adams does a refresh every 4 years. Every 4 years they refresh. And then they were talking about some other breweries who had just, changed your packaging look.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just super cool. So if anyone can go to that Kodo Design website and check out that newsletter, it's really good. And then,
And they're not paying us for that. They're not.
right.
It's just something you find interesting and pass along.
Right.
Good.
And then there was also, who's the guy from Revolution that does a blog? I have it right here.
Oh yeah.
Why do I do this to myself?
When someone says they don't remember a name, that causes me to forget the name when I know the name. It's a very
It's
insidious
a real
thing.
thing. It's true.
He has a name that you could mispronounce that I know. It's Beer Crunchers is the
Beer
blog.
Crunchers, yeah.
And he writes a lot of analysis, and sometimes he's his own devil's advocate. A couple times he's brought in other bloggers to do a pro and con, and one of them was should you attend GABF? Should you attend CBC?
Right.
Why and why not? It's a great exercise. But he mostly does market analysis. And
Doug Velicki.
Doug Velicki, yeah.
Yeah.
So you could say that wrong, right? You
Yeah.
could say Velicki.
Yeah. So his particular talk today in
Yeah.
his newsletter was about Untapped.
Oh, okay.
So Untapped apparently has a data analysis service for breweries that gives them the data on the beers that are associated with their brewery and other ones around them that you can really get into deep. I don't know what pricing is, but according to that article, it is more than breweries can really afford. But you could get incredible insights on like what styles your brewery is hitting with, what geographic locations everyone's checking your beers in. We have this information for grocery stores,
Right.
with Nielsen and all those. Well, not Nielsen. What is it now?
Yeah, they changed their name.
QI or something like that. You
Right.
have that stuff for grocery stores, but that doesn't really help those.
Tap room.
Those, yeah. Even I sell beer out to the on premise.
Right.
I know Arrived has put together some data, but they're definitely not ubiquitous and not covering everything. Whereas Untapped is driven by the consumers who are talking about the beer. So if one of your beers is getting just destroyed at a particular bar,
Yeah.
go over and see if they know if the lines have been cleaned. Like
Yeah.
if there's a bar that their consumers rank a certain style as higher than other styles in particular, you could market your beer to that retailer
Right.
in a more focused way rather than just saying, hi, I'm here. Here's 18 beers. Right.
Right.
So it was very interesting what you can do.
Yeah. So this seems to be endemic of certain services, like because even if you are in grocery stores, if you're not heavily distributor supported and you're just sort of getting your feet wet, or you're where the distributor doesn't have some of the VIP that some of the tools have access to, Nielsen won't share those numbers, or maybe even shares them when it's not in your interest. Like there's ways for them to just reveal numbers to you that make sense to the distributor, and like they're not giving you the whole picture. All those things are like not really affordable for a lot of places. And so
even for larger breweries,
so this
it's not really
well,
affordable.
and I can only go off of my experience with Untap. The amount of money they want you to pay to support a festival, and it's all of it's built into just providing ads, pop-up ads when you're in a certain region, and an email that has a value, but the festival support is non-existent.
Right.
Like it's more for a single day festival. You're putting more beers in than 3 or 4 breweries doing a year.
Yeah.
For a single day, easily, right? No, I mean more.
Yeah,
than that.
Even on the advertising side, it's just
no. I mean, it has a value, but it's not. It's to me, they short the experience by having this uphill climb to get a beer list together, to leverage that, and then the check-ins don't happen at festivals, and
Right.
so like the level of data analysis is zero. So like if
Yeah.
like literally for a beer festival that has 5,000 people, like literally there's 15 people who are checking in 25 beers,
yes.
and it's useless information.
Right.
And to address
They're far more likely to do that when they're sitting at a bar.
to address that shortfall, they need to market to their
Additional consumers.
right? And also, like there are tons of people who have never used Untap that come to festivals. It's just not their thing. And there are people who have the app sitting in their pocket and they're not going to bother. There's no incentivized program that they have, and it really has to come from them. We're like, the festival doesn't have a way to incentivize those two factions. They don't have street teams. They seem disinterested in marketing to new consumers. I don't know.
New app users.
I've never seen any advertisement on that, and incentivizing follow through. So, like it's you might buy it for the advertising, but the value of it, the missing value of it that they should be good at is providing the analysis. And I suspect of the large amount of people who have the app, most of them just look something up and never rate it. I never rate it.
Oh, for me, it's helpful when I'm at a place and I need to know what their tap list is.
Right. But
That's clunky and not well done, but
I don't rate it because of my position. I don't feel like I need to get into discussion of why I rated something a 3 or a 4 or a 5 or whatever.
I haven't rated for 10 years.
Yeah. So it's a non-starter for me, but like I know there's plenty of people who could or should. It's acknowledged within the app that some ratings are better than others simply because the styles are not popular, right? Oh yeah, like lager, I'll give it. It's not. I don't like them, but here's 2 stars.
I don't like IPAs.
Yeah. So that's the. I don't know what fits in that to fix that shortfall for any of this stuff, but data is expensive, and the argument is, they're spending a lot of overhead maintaining this stuff and trying to build a model around it. On the other hand, like you're also getting free data. You're also getting you're not getting ratings from people you pay. So
yeah, well, and the other thing is that's so many breweries and tap rooms and restaurants and everywhere uses Untapped for their menu, and that's incredibly expensive.
Yeah,
but it's the de facto standard.
Yeah. So they just don't have a pricing model where you get some useful data if you have the menu. Like I just don't think there's enough there.
Yeah.
So, But I don't run that company. Maybe that's the only way they make it work. I get that, but they've also been bought and sold a couple times. They've also
they were
gotten
bought by NextGlass.
who also does other software things.
Yeah, they have a couple other beer area. Like I think they have a production management app, but Untapped is their main driver.
This is maybe an imperfect analogy, but knowing what I know about software companies, they want to be first and they want to dominate the market and they want to control. And it's very much like,
Well, and Untapped has already done that.
it's already like big beer. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you want to. It's
For
not
a
enough.
hot minute, I thought they were owned by AB, but I think that was B. What's the
Brewers
Yeah,
Beer Advocate,
Beer Advocate.
and then
I was-
Rate Beer.
I was confused. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's this desire to be all things with a tech company and dominate the market and set the terms and conditions. But maybe you should just start figuring out what service you're going to provide that has value and not be the only app.
I didn't mean to bring Untapped up. I should have known I was going to trigger you.
Well, the funny thing is, I get along with their CEO. It's like we just can't get it together on the like. You know, he deals and he's got great relationships with people that I know, but it's not ever going to make sense unless they address those issues, and it doesn't sound like they're going to do that. So that's why we sort of give it up on the tap list for a lot of times for these festivals. Yeah, I mean,
I had a lot of success with Wickenburg
Yeah.
and moderate success with Arizona Strong. Let's
Real
see.
Wild Woody were good at too.
Real Wild and Woody was great. I will not be doing a tap list for Wickenburg Oktoberfest. That's just not.
Yeah,
We don't have enough attendees that care.
yeah,
Like we have attendees that are there for a fun event in the park.
right,
We don't have super craft beer fans that want to map out where they're going.
right.
And that's fine. And I think that for Arizona Strong that we can do a pretty good job of getting all that info. It takes a little bit of work, but I think that our customers really want that. So
Yeah. I know how they solve it for great taste. They get a ton of volunteers, and that's their only job.
yeah, 675 volunteers.
Yeah. What did we figure? That was a volunteer for every 2 kegs.
Yeah.
That's crazy. No, or 2 volunteers for every keg. One of those 2, but it was a ratio that's like that's not sustainable.
The last thing that the guild has going on right now is the pint glass.
Yep. Working on it. Maybe we'll know more next week.
Yeah, we've been working on it. I've been recruiting designers. That hasn't gone super great. You have one that seems interested in working with us, so that's cool. And then we'll have Arizona Pint Glass Day in early to mid-December when people can get some for their friends.
Yeah.
And that sounds awesome for Christmas presents and such,
I just want to have it.
or just a night out.
Just
Yeah.
want to have it.
Great.
I want something that everybody in the state can participate in.
Yeah.
And we will.
It doesn't take a ton of effort or energy to do it
I hope
on
there's
the brewery side.
there'll be some connectivity from year to year. There'll be different themes, but it'll have a look and feel. It will bring people together. It will encourage people to go to tap rooms, reward their guests. It hopefully will do a lot of things.
Oh,
for
I
us.
forgot one thing that's going to be the
last
Arizona Strong tickets on
thing. Black Friday.
Black Friday. We're going to do physical tickets again. We're going to have them at breweries. I know we're going to have a lot more brewery participation. Oh, we've got a collab coming up with Santan.
We
Brewing
do in
Company.
December.
It's going to be great.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got enough. We've
Yeah.
got things to do.
Great. Back to work. All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.